say around Brand Builders Group a lot that reputation precedes revenue, and reputation effectively is an unconscious calculation of how much people trust you. Do they trust you? Do they trust your brand? Do they trust what you are saying? And it only made sense that I would bring to you one of my very best friends, David Horsager, for an interview. And I've purposely been waiting for you to meet him. He is one of my most trusted friends. We are super close, and he is the guy on trust. He owns the topic of trust. He is the CEO of the Trust Edge Leadership Institute. He wrote a national bestseller called The Trust Edge. He also every year puts out a study called The Trust Outlook. And then he invented something called the ETI, the Enterprise Trust Index, which kind of measures trust inside of organizations and things. And he is a Hall of Fame speaker. He works with companies like the New York Yankees, FedEx, Toyota, global governments, Department of Homeland Security, and just really, really world renowned. And so he's here to share a little bit of his story about how he became the guy on trust and how he built the business he's got today. So, brother, thanks for being here.
Hey, Rory, it is a treat to be with Brand Builders and just plain with you. And what a journey. Great to be in a friend group and mastermind group and just doing life. So, yeah.
I guess we should mention that, right? That you and I and Jay Bear and Jason Dorsey are in a true peer colleague, unpaid, friend supported mastermind. We call it the struggle. We have been together 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I think at least
something like that. We've had what people don't know. Every single one of us, 4 back-to-back years, were inducted into the Professional Speaking Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And were you first, or was Jay?
I was. I think
you were first.
Yeah.
And then Jay, and then me, and then Dorsey.
That's right.
So the power of surrounding yourself with amazing people. But I want you to share the story of how you started, right? Because somebody listening out there right now going, gosh, I'd love to speak. I'd love to work with the New York Yankees. I'd love to have a multi 7-figure business. I'd love to do these things. How did you start?
Yep. So it goes back, I grew up on a farm in the poorest county in Minnesota, and, I was youngest of 6 kids, and I definitely had kind of vision for great things, grateful for my parents to be the great leaders they were. And mom and dad are still 91 now and still run the farm, and
awesome.
Actually just sold about 750 acres. So they're thinking about how they can give away money these days. But I basically, after college, I went to be on staff with a youth and family organization. And after that, I later became director, and I built a little bit of leadership curriculum for kind of college students, youth, whatever. Moved back to Minnesota. And this is how it started. We put every penny we had into that first organization. I have to tell my kids this is back in the 1900s, 19. But we moved back to Minnesota. I had one booking for $500. One thing I'd booked. I moved back, moved everything from living on a golf course down in Arkansas to back to Minnesota. And so we jumped in, and I thought, how are we going to save money? How are we going to do this? So we found not really an apartment, the basement of 86-year-old Clara Miller's. No windows, no bathroom, no kitchen, black mold on the walls. And that's where we started this. And we lived there for 2 years. And actually, we started with nothing. And by that October, I'd thrown everything we had into marketing and videos, all this stuff. And we had $1.40 to our name, 60 cents in the business account, 80 cents in the home account. After paying our urgent bills, that's all we had. And at the time, I figured if we could just make $700 a month, I could pay my urgent bills. And I think my statement that year from the IRS was that I made $2,000 or something. So for the year. So anyway, that was the start. And I'll tell you, it's
not a fast start. $1.40, $2,000 your first year.
Yeah. 2,000 in profit. 2,000 in profit, not revenue. Okay. So, and that was a half a year in, so all we had was a half a year to work with there. But basically, we started with call, and working till 11 at night and
Mm.
making calls. People that say that phone calls don't work anymore, I just don't. We still make calls, but anyway, that was how we started, and we've shifted things, several times. The grad work was a big launch pad. Obviously, all my work around trust became interesting to people more famous than me. The book becoming a bestseller.
Yeah.
No.
Let's talk about trust, right? Because you know that we talk about Sheehan's wall with our community and being known for one thing and breaking through the wall. You are one of the best examples of that, of just owning one thing, one topic, one issue, one problem of trust. How did you decide that? How did you land on that? How did you choose it? Did it choose you, kind of a thing? Like,
Yep.
what was
It was
that?
it was a mix, and I think I had been kind of sharing this leadership work. Got asked to speak at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy, a few other things, and basically, I still remember where I was. I was at a. It was not that it was some big spiritual epiphany, but it was before we had the 4 kids and all that. And Lisa and I were traveling together, and we're at an event down in, I think it was Tucson, Arizona. I just remember it was probably the most expensive place we'd stayed at till that point. It was the Lowe's Resort. And we're
Okay.
out on the deck after a day of this at this business conference. I just started thinking, the problem they think they're having, I don't think it's a real problem. It's not a leadership problem. The reason people don't follow that leader is trust. I think, the problem they think they're having is sales. It's not a sales issue. The reason people don't buy is trust. And it kept going. And this was just intuitive. This was not grad work. This wasn't research based. It was just saying, that's a trust problem. That's a trust issue. That's a trust. Now, fast forward. I believe everything genuinely is a trust issue. I believe most people are not solving the root issue. It's always a trust issue at the core. It's not a leadership issue. It's not a sales issue. It's not an innovation issue. The only way to increase learning issue is increase, trust in the content, the teacher, or the psychological state of the environment. It's not a diversity issue. The only way the biggest Harvard study shows diversity on its own pits people against each other. The only way to get the benefits of it is increased trust, which is our many with trust. But back then, so I pressed into it a little bit. I started thinking about it more, started reading. There was, by the way, Rory, back then, there was nothing written on trust and leadership. There was no research. I mean, a lot of people are talking about trust the last decade. Over 2 decades ago, almost nobody in business and leadership was, psychology stuff. So I decided at the time, now I was speaking some already. I kind of had enough going on that way. It wasn't like I had to, but I thought, I just had gone away for this one weekend. I thought, I think I was supposed to get my master's degree. So I just looked at colleges, and sure enough, the one that I graduated from, usually you want variety in your grad work, but I just decided, I can get right in. They have my transcripts, and they had this organizational leadership degree. And I put every bit of my research and my final dissertation, everything, on trust. And that became interesting to some people. And that led to my passion, that then led to us using that framework in organizations, and it worked. We saw tripling of sales. We saw retention reduce. We actually had something real. So I think one thing that I will differentiate on to people that are just brand builders is, I'm big on, and I know many of your people are, but I'm just saying, it was real for me. I was genuinely passionate. This work changed me. So I would just argue with people, find one thing, but something that is real and true to them, because now my work has been used on 6 continents. We just had an outside university, triangulated revalidation, revalidated the work as the framework that builds trust globally. So, I mean, the research added passion, the books added passion, the seeing change in people and organizations added passion. I should walk over to the other side of my desk. I just got a postcard from a guy that said, 5 years ago, you were here and helped us with this, and it changed our organization, and here's how, and whatever. So, that was there's 20 years in there,
but it's connected to your personal passion, personal belief system. And then you mentioned the grad work, and this is something I wanted to talk about. We've had Dorsey on. Jason Dorsey came on. Our audience is a little bit familiar with that. But one thing that you do, he does, and Jay Bear does, and
Yep.
we've not really done, which we are in the middle of, is
Yep.
really doing more data-driven research. So
Yep.
you started it in grad school,
Right.
and now you do an annual study. And so talk
Right.
to us about why
Okay.
data, how
Right.
data, how does that happen?
And remember, at the core, I love story. I love keynote speaking,
Right.
but I saw this difference. I saw speakers that were kind of motivational with no depth or value. And we said, instead of putting money into marketing, we're going to give value. And really, our research study became a way of showing value that was a marketing play. We didn't mean it to be, but that's kind of what happened. So, we do the annual study to be on just the cutting edge of thought leadership around trust.
It's called the Trust Outlook. That's what it's called.
If you go to trustoutlook.com, you can see our last several years. We had done one way back, called Trust Trends in 2014, big study. I had done, of course, my grad work. We put out some different studies over time that weren't so deep. Like what I remember, we did one at the Obama-Romney election to judge trust between those two at the time. So we did some other studies, but basically, and now we even had it revalidated by an outside university and they said this is the framework for building trust globally. So it's cost. It can be costly, but it's the way of being authentic thought leaders in your space. And so we do use that data. Of course, it gets out on social media. The Trust Outlook out of the Trust Edge Leadership Institute puts this out and all that. And then, I can start, whether it's in a boardroom or with 5,000 people in front of me, with something very fresh and relevant to them. And even I know you have certified folks, my certified Trust Edge coaches around the world, there's a whole part of the platform that we offer that has research slides. So you have trust and leadership slides. You have trust in sales, trust in culture, trust in policing. We have people dealing with our trust work for corruption issues in East Africa. So it gives them grit and beef, and it serves them well to be able to start with research. I'll give you one research finding. Last year, the number one reason people wanted to work for an organization, ahead of being paid more, ahead of more autonomy, ahead of a more fun work environment with a ping pong table. Number one, they wanted trusted leadership. And really, that just points to the whole new book, Trusted Leader. Like, people either want to be a trusted leader or they want to follow leaders they trust. And more than anything else. So that just backed up. You take that one piece of data that I can show 92% of people said this or that or whatever, and all of a sudden it backs up what we've been saying and gives grit to it. And people want more depth than ever before if you're going to build a brand. They want to feel like you genuinely do. It's not just some idea you pulled out of your head.
So when you mentioned the money part of this, and it also, kind of makes sense. Like, if you're the trust guy, you're doing research and pulling data and all that stuff. It helps it be trusted. That's very aligned.
Huge differentiator, by the way. Huge, because if you know who else in my space that is a big name, and whole family has a big name for years, the difference between us is as far as trust goes, our first books came out about the same time, but we have done all this proprietary.
Well, just anybody, right? Yeah. I mean, just anybody. This data, which if you didn't listen to the interview that we did with Jason Dorsey, you should go listen to that interview about how data is the differentiator. Now, you mentioned the cost, right? So I thought that it was interesting that you said, instead of putting it all into marketing, we put it into this, and it kind of ends up also being marketing. Are these, to pull off a study, are you talking thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands? Like, I mean, what's the...
Yep, it depends. So for us, I can remember the first time I did a study for, maybe it was only, I don't know, well, not the first time. The first time I did the Trust Outlook way of doing a study, it was, I don't know, 30,000 or something. We've done them in-house.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah, tens of thousands. And I did it only on the US side. And then I'm sharing the data. I'm at a massive conference up in Toronto, and I'm like, oh my goodness, each piece of research says US. It's the worst. I was so embarrassed that I said never again. And we went to global, and global's much more expensive generally. But now we do it in-house, so we do it in numbers that aren't six-figure like those. Like, I think one year we were up toward almost, a six-figure study there.
But that's just to field the study. Then you got to like produce the assets and like do the infographics, and the time. I mean, there's a bunch of time to write the questions and all this stuff.
And but nowadays it's so worth it. I mean, it's such a differentiator that, and I would argue many people could do a study for, that 20 to 30,000 that was actually quite, I don't know. It depends on how much of the globe you're going to reach. But one year we took the top GDP country on every continent. So it wasn't like every country, but then you have 7 or whatever countries that we decided to go after. So you had some relevant, global data, but we've done them different sizes. But I think today you better do global, not just US generally. Unless you're doing a specific area, like we did a specific executive edition that was just US, and we also added interviews of those CEOs.
And do you think this is part of what has led to speaking engagements, is basically just publishing this kind of thought leadership? We all hear, we hear YouTube, LinkedIn, podcast, blog, book. We hear that pretty often. And then this is another whole piece, is like, oh, the study. And then are those the things that drive your speaking, or is there some other like secret formula to getting speaking engagements?
Well, the secret formula in speaking is in the mix, but I will tell you something. I can tell you, we make beautiful real magazines. Like I could grab one and show you across the room. Actually, so if just trust Outlook, the whatever, and you can see,
you print it, you make it as a magazine and print it.
Yeah, and you can see the data in here if you're watching, or I guess pie charts and whatever that makes it interesting and fun to read, and this many of this or whatever. So I've had someone hire me for a tens of thousands of dollars by opening up the page and saying, building trust in crisis, or building trust in the midst of change. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was this article right here. And that person hired me for a, tens of thousands of dollar day. Because they're like, this is what we need. Come spend a day with our executive team. We need to build trust in the midst of this change. So that's not always, I've had, you go to the book and you've written some amazing books that I love. I mean, that is another part of it. I had someone pick up the book, a high-powered, senator pick up the book in the Denver airport, and that's why I spoke to Congress twice. I had the president of Procter & Gamble pick up the book on a Sunday when he's with his daughter at a Barnes & Noble, and that's why I spoke to Procter & Gamble. So there's some kind of anomaly type things but the book, the research, for us as far as speaking, it is doing a great job. And by the way, and you've done so well at this, from back to your Toastmasters day to everything, but I've had mentors on, like, I've hired comedy, I've hired, comedians to look at my stuff and help me. I've hired speech coaches. I've hired improv. I've hired all these things. I've had you look at my speech before I gave my Hall of Fame speech, if you remember, because I'm like, all of the mentors on being great on stage, the book piece, the research piece, there's social media pieces that we've gone more all in on than we ever were before, too. But I'll say something about the speaking piece. A big differentiator for us, by the way, is how we thank people.
Huh.
We're just better at thanking everybody than many. Like, I couldn't believe all the people that say, the other 25, 35, 45, $55,000 speakers, I never got anything for having them at our conference. I couldn't believe how you followed up and thanked us, and we send a big package and all this stuff. So I think, there's all kinds of little things that can make it, build your brain.
Yeah. Well, and I take that in investing into your business, investing into your trade, both the message part of it and the depth of the thought leadership, and then as well as the presentation of it, you on stage, which seems like all the way back to those very early days, you've always been investing into it and growing. So you started in 1999. I'd love to hear just a couple minutes on your business model today,
Mhm.
right? So this is over 20 years later.
Yep.
Now you've got a team, you've
Yep.
got, these great websites, these great demo videos. Like you can see how over years it has built up. And I'd love specifically for you to talk a little bit about like the train the trainer model and the certification business model, because I think you do a really great job of taking your curriculum and having other people be able to teach it, and
Yep.
I think that's a scalable model for what, a lot of people can learn from.
So, outside of the research, the ways we fulfill the mission of developing trusted leaders and organizations around the world, remember, we think that's helping to deal with the root cause. So, we're training, leading leadership events, sales events, all these kind of things, or all these different problems. But there's three business units. One is speaking and training from us. That's me speaking 100 events a year. Now we have a 5-camera studio right here, 20 yards from me. I have a producer full time. I mean, we're doing that, whether that's on stage live or virtually. That's a one and done though, right? Then we have the consulting piece, and that is, I had built several assessments in my grad work and was overseen by the guy that wrote the book on 360 gap analysis. So we have an enterprise trust index. It's built on 50 years of Accenture data and my grad work. And it's a way of measuring trust in big organizations and closing gaps. That's consulting. I have consultants subcontracted on my team to do those are big, significant issues. We're working at the global pharmaceutical that you all would know right now, trying to build trust globally with the vaccines going on, all this stuff. Okay, so that's really customized part. Our biggest push right now and the love is this certification part, and that is we certify independent coaches and corporate trainers inside of companies to use our content, but we don't just certify them, we support them. So they pay monthly or annually. And we heard a lot of people say, well, this one, I got certified and then I never got support, or I got certified and I just got these 20 videos and worksheets. We give them everything. My 21 years, we took and built ourselves and coded and created a beautiful platform that has everything that we heard they wanted. So it has research-based content and courses they can use on their people. It has assessments, unlimited. They can use these assessments. They can see the cool, beautiful pie charts and everything and how they can close gaps. It has community. So I've got, I've had the dean of Penn State, the dean of University of Nebraska that are certified, the police chief of the city of Las Vegas, and the, people in Uganda, Kenya, Quebec, Amsterdam, one of the former heads of, Nike is one of them. So you have this really cool group of learning pros, whether they're inside of companies or independents, that then monthly we support. They have the online community. We built kind of you could say a Facebook, whatever, right in our site. And then we have monthly calls where they get to share ideas and sharpen each other. And
so they basically pay a fee to get certified. Yep. And part of that includes access to this library of stuff. They're in this community, and then they have the ability to like reteach your content effectively.
Assessments Unlimited, they can make so much money, to using our content and having our support. And they get real people in my company when they need help, and they get these monthly calls, and they get our annual event with it. So they pay an onboarding fee, and then they pay monthly or annually, whichever way they choose, on the support and ongoing. We're updating the site all the time. It's beautiful. We've had some big companies come and look at, like, they heard about what we're doing. Like, what are you doing? This is,
And do they pay a one-time fee in the beginning, and then monthly after that is basically how it works?
Monthly, or they pay the one-time fee plus annual, and then they can use it for a year. But they pay either they pay the one-time fee plus start paying monthly, or they pay the one-time fee and an annual, and then it doesn't get again until another year.
I gotcha. But and so that's a model that you guys are doing where basically you can certify and train and support other people to go out and teach your content, which you make money from, they can make money from, and it helps you spread the mission.
And it's so fun. Like I was at a banquet and John Maxwell and I got seated up, I didn't necessarily deserve it. I just got to be seated with him anyway. We, he said, he said, David, you got to stop just letting corporate do this. Because I used to do train the trainer only. Like you buy this big pack, 3-ring binder, and then you buy the workbooks, and the annuity is in buying the workbooks. And the thing is, today people want it flexible. They want to teach one-on-one, one on 1,000. They want to, be able to do all these things. So we said, well, if we can support them, I mean, it's cool. It's happening. This one of our corporate trainers, our trainers in Indonesia, she's using our work on banking and oil executives, and she's using our work in this foundation with girls that are coming out of sex trafficking to rebuild trust. I mean, how fun is it to see the mix of use of these coaches that are making money with it and making a difference with it?
Yeah, really, really cool stuff. It's a long way from your $1.40 living in the basement with no windows.
Well, I'm great. There's a lot of people like you, mentors, God's grace, my wife. I mean, this has been a journey, and thankfully, it's been amazing.
Well, and influential leader, the Trust Edge, one of your first books is, to me, a book that is, I think of it like Take the Stairs. It's a book that every single person should read, no matter your age, your position, your title. Like, you should read the Trust Edge. I fully plan on having our boys read it like as soon as they can. It's just like a solid staple that everybody should read. So we have The Trusted Leader, the brand new book coming out about how to apply this inside of organizations and to apply it to your own life to develop a culture of trust. Where should people go if they want to get Trusted Leader? Right now, I know you've got bonuses and all that stuff at the time this is coming out. So where should people go to connect with you?
The best place where we have some special gifts for all your listeners is trustedleaderbook.com/Rory. RORY. So trustedleaderbook.com/Rory. Otherwise, you can find everything at trustedge.com and all kinds of things, but you get a bunch of free resources if you just go to trustedleaderbook.com/Rory.
I love it. So go there, trustedleaderbook.com/Rory. Pick up the book. I'm telling you, this is quality stuff. Not just the watching clearly, the way that they do what they do is super valuable for you as a someone as a personal brand, but also the actual substance of the content that David and the team they teach is absolutely extraordinary, incredible. It's made such a difference in my life, our marriage, our kids, how we run business. We're just huge fans of the Trust Edge, and so excited about the Trusted Leader now applying this and helping our leaders go through it. So go to trustedleaderbook.com/Rory. David, thank you for being here, brother. We wish you all the best.
Thank you.